Before we go any further in this video, my son is up, he's on his machine. Autistic people are very loud, so he's up, he's loud, he's in the background. There's nothing I can do about that. So yeah, he might quieten down in a bit, but he'll just keep getting louder and louder, so yeah. He's been like this for the last 2 hours, so I just thought it's no point waiting any longer because he could butt words all day. Okay, so narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, I have been talking about this for the last couple of days. It is a very sensitive subject. Hang on, I wonder if this will help. It doesn't generally. Narcissistic personality disorder is it's a very sensitive subject. Oh, he's quieting down. No, he hasn't. It's a very sensitive subject. But so if you are triggered by things like this, then please be warned. The last couple of videos, I've discussed things like what NPD actually is, the causes and the symptoms of it. So I'm going to sort of carry on with that and talk about the treatment and how it works, if it works, why it works, kind of things. But just so you understand, my son is not Scottish. He's just in that mood, okay? Okay. People with narcissistic personality generally will not seek treatment purely because they don't believe anything's wrong with them. And they don't generally believe there's anything wrong with them because if they actually acknowledged to themselves there was something wrong with them, they would actually have to acknowledge they failed at something. And as I've discussed in previous videos, they don't like to admit there's anything wrong with them or they failed at anything because they cannot acknowledge failure. They have this air of, I'm better than you, I'm superior to you, I cannot fail, because if they fail, they can't handle failure. They have this fear, absolute fear of failure. So to acknowledge they failed is not something they want to do. Okay, but if they do actually look and actively seek out treatments, it's not because it's for their superiority complex, the fear. It's for things like depression or substance abuse, alcohol abuse, it's for other things, other mental health issues. That's what they'll seek help for. And when they are in any kind of therapies, they struggle to accept the help or even follow through with what they're being, with the treatments of it, because they get there, they've acknowledged they've got a problem, and then somebody's telling them they failed at something. So in their head, that's not right. That is kind of, so that it will be a massive, massive barrier for them to actually accept it and then follow through with the actual treatment. Somebody in counselling, psychotherapy, or any therapist or counsellor would have to be absolutely specialise. You would have to have somebody who is very capable of handling somebody with NPD. But because the cause of NPD is so unknown and they don't know how to prevent it, trying to treat somebody with NPD is really difficult because they don't know the root cause of it. So they don't know how to proceed with handling somebody with NPD. But there are, from what they have learned about the condition, and admittedly they haven't learned a lot, there is ways that you can help somebody, but you'd have to do it from things like from when they were much younger. So things like getting help or getting treatment as soon as possible for childhood mental health issues. So if your child is showing signs of depression or anxiety, from a young age, your child is showing signs of depression or anxiety or any other mental health issue, you have to get them into therapy there and then. If they're showing signs of any kind of mental health problems, get them into therapy ASAP. That's the kind of thing they're saying. They're telling you that if they are known to be social outcasts, known to be struggling with things like integrating with society, and there are personality disorders where they struggle to do things like that, get them, help them participate in family therapies and learn healthy ways to communicate and cope with conflict and emotional distresses and things like that. And they're also suggesting things like, as adults with children, as adults, once you have children, going to do things like attending parenting classes, and actually seeking guidance from a therapist or even a social worker if necessary, especially if you've got if you as a parent have had or do suffer from mental health, they're suggesting that you seek help, because having children and having mental health issues can aggravate that mental health, can make it worse. That is something I know. I know that for a fact. When you have mental health issues and then you have a child, it makes them worse because you're not sleeping. You're not thinking clearly. The kid is demanding everything from you. It's draining. You don't get any time for yourself for years. And it can have a massive impact on your mental health. Even for parents without mental health issues, it can actually have a massive impact on your mental health. Parents who end up having children with and then get postnatal depression. My sister had her first child and then after having her first child had postnatal depression. It does happen. So getting help, seeking therapy, or even seeking help from a social worker is no shame. There's no shame in any of that, because having children is difficult. It's so hard. It's hard on your mental state. It's hard on your physical state. It is so difficult. And it's not just difficult for mothers. It's really difficult for fathers, because as babies and young toddlers, they want their mums because, they just do. It's been proven that it's mummy they want as babies because, they come from mums and mummy is who they gravitate to for a while. It's really difficult on both parents. So it's not just the mum that who could end up with things like mental health issues or struggling physically, mentally. the father too. You know, parenting is so difficult and it's not an easy life. And there is no shame in getting parenting classes, you know, having a child and then seeking help, learning how to become a parent, learning how to parent. Like once they hit school, you know, going to parenting classes because your kid's in a new stage in their life and learning how to handle that new stage in their life. There's no shame in that. There's no anything in that. Seeking help with therapy because, you know, they're doing things, they're learning things, and they're behaving in new ways, and you're struggling to cope with that. There's no shame in getting help. There's no shame in turning to social services because you're struggling to handle that, and they can give you advice. You know, things like that are normal and they're healthy. And there is no shame in any of that, and nobody should feel afraid to seek help, whether it's via parenting classes, therapy, or through the social services in any respect, because they're not just there. Social services are not there just there to take your kids away. They want to help parents to be the best parents that they can be so that they don't have to intervene because your child's in danger, because you're struggling to take care of them. You know, it's just not what they want. They don't want to have to just intervene because parents are struggling. They actually want to help you. You know, I had family liaison helping me and my son for years because I was struggling. My mental health, and because I had no medication for any of my medical conditions because doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. I had family liaison working with me and my son for years, you know, until my doctors, my neurologists, I got a new neurologist who understood that I wasn't epileptic because my seizures, despite what my seizures were doing, he understood my medical condition, my neurological condition, and put me on the right medication. You know, and once I was stable, family liaison wasn't needed anymore. But by that time, he was, what, 16? Well, 15. He was about 15 at that point. You know, so they were working with me for years because they had to. There's no shame in it. You know, I worked closely with them. I was in therapy, or in and out of therapy for years. But I was on no medication because nobody knew what was on me. It's hard, but it was the right thing to do. You know, as I said, there's no shame. They're there to help. You know, but like I said, he's in a really good mood today. You know, that's what they're there for. They're there to help people. They're there to help parents, and they're there to help families. You know, but like I said, because not enough is known about NPD, this is what they are saying we should do if we're struggling to try and prevent your children growing up and stop, you know, and becoming a risk of getting narcissistic personality disorder, but they can't actually say that it will stop it.
No, 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 no. I did not forget. I will left. I am Russian. No, no, no. I'm Scottish. Are you sure about that? You don't sound Scottish. Oh no, lads, I am Scottish. I'm also Russian. No, no, I'm also German.
Sorry, he's so funny. But they can't say it will happen or that it will help. or that it will stop the condition, the personality disorder, from actually happening. But they're saying it could help. They just don't know enough about it. Actual treatment. Let's see if we can do this. There are no medications unless they've got a co-occurring condition. It's that simple. Like, co-occurring conditions like depression, anxiety, unless they have things like that, there's no medication for it. And there is no known cure. But like I said, there is not enough research done. They don't know enough about it. And you never know, maybe at some point in the future, if they can learn enough about it, we might be able to stop it completely, or even find a way to prevent it from happening. You never know. So if we can get somebody with NPD into therapy and actually get them to follow through, the goal of therapy is to help build their self-esteem, because we know that people with NPD have no self-esteem or very low self-esteem, and have more realistic expectations of others, because we know that those with NPD have very high expectations of other people. They expect them to just do as they're told and, perform to perfection, because actually if they're perfect, everybody else must be perfect too. So they do recommend talking therapies or psychotherapy. It just depends on which way you go, or how you see it. So they use it to help them relate to others, which is a good thing, realistically, because they don't know how to relate to other people or to understand their own feelings. Because what they do say is that if they can get them to listen to somebody, and actually follow through with therapy, it can help them to understand not only other people's feelings and emotions and behaviours, but their own as well, which is really helpful, because they actually don't listen to their own emotions and feelings, because they have so little self-worth that they need that feeling of superiority, because otherwise they feel like they're failing. So they force that behaviour. So by listening and learning to listen to their own feelings and emotions, it will build them back up, and they won't feel like they need to be so perfect all the time. Okay. So this is what they need to do. If they listen and follow through with therapy, this is what will happen. They will learn to accept and maintain relationships, not only with other people outside, inside their families and friendship circles, socially, but at work as well, which is a healthy work-life balance kind of thing. They will learn to recognise their own strengths and weaknesses, so they won't feel like they're just failing if they get something wrong. It's not just an automatic failure. And they'll learn to recognise criticism as just that, not just if somebody criticises you, that's it, you failed. That's it. You're a failure if you've done something like minute wrong. They'll actually learn to accept healthy criticism, and they'll learn to develop more realistic goals, not only for themselves, but for other people. And it will actually help them create this whole kind of, healthy lifestyle for themselves, and help them see the world in a more realistic, healthy way. So if you can get somebody with NPD into therapy and help them follow through and accept it, it will be really beneficial for them, because they'll actually learn to create a more healthy work-life balance, and they'll learn to accept themselves, warts and all kind of thing, that not every criticism is a failure, and they don't need to be perfect. They're allowed to skate along in the middle, and that's okay. They don't have to be the best at everything. They're allowed to just be skating along at the middle. And it's okay every once in a while to be at the bottom. It's not going to be a massive catastrophe if every once in a while they sit at the bottom. It won't be this disastrous thing. So yeah, that is kind of what therapy will do for somebody with NPD. But the tricky part is to get somebody with NPD actually in therapy. And then once they're there, actually get them to accept what the therapist says and talks about with them, and then follow through with it. Because that's the hard part. Anyway, I'm gonna go. Looks like my son's calmed down. That's funny. I love it when he's in that mood. Anyway, I'm gonna go, and I hope you all have a good day. Bye.